The only good bug is a dead bug.
Hi there, I'm Luke Hector and this is the Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the latter part. Got a couple of reviews coming for Bad Comet Games, thanks for the review copies. This will be a speed review for Life of the Amazonia, and we'll do a full detailed review of Wondrous Creatures afterwards. So I've been wanting to dig into this game in particular for a little while, mainly because of the gorgeous cover, the fact that it's nature themed, and because this was touted as Cascadia Plus. I have been touting the praises of Cascadia for a long time as possibly the ultimate gateway game that there is, and I still stand by that. So the idea that this was going to be a step up above Cascadia, but still feel kind of a similar fashion, is like, okay, that's pretty cool. From what I've heard though, it's not just one step, it's several steps, so we're talking a more meaty fare here. How much meat do you get on a parrot? I'm not sure. But, you know, I'm keen to see what this one's like, so I've been giving it the beans, both in multiplayer and solo, and it's time to find out what I make of it. So there are some similarities to Cascadia, but obviously some differences. What you are doing is building your own little ecological display with tiles and pieces and meeples in order to score the most environmental points, which is basically just victory points at the end of the day. The main thing, though, is that you are doing it via a bag building mechanic. So here's a better example. You have resource tokens, of which they come in 4 different varieties, and the idea is that you start off with a selection of very basic tokens of low value, but as the game goes on, you can upgrade these tokens to be of higher value. Basically, they range from 1 to 4, and what you do during a turn is that you'll have 5 of these drawn out of the bag, and these will dictate what kind of actions you're able to do. So water allows you to buy certain cards, fruit allows you to buy certain meeples, green, like plants allow you to get more tiles, that kind of thing, and gold or coins allows you to buy more resource tokens and up your bag in that fashion. With these tokens, you can do as many actions as you like out of the 8 available in the game, as long as you can afford to use the resource tokens. And depending on whether you've bought the upgrades or not, you might be able to hang on to some tokens from round to round. So the actions that you've got, I mean, as I said, there's 8. I'm not going to go in stupid detail here, but basically they will involve things like collecting new tiles to expand your jungle out, populating it with trees and flowers, which on their own don't do much, but combined with scoring effects of cards will have some other effects. But the main thing that you will probably do, other than accumulate more resource tokens, is you will acquire meeples and scenery cards. So the meeples basically come from, much in the same vein as Cascadia, 8 of these big cards here, and they have sets A, set B, set C, so you can use whichever set or randomize it for your game, and these will score based on certain criteria. So I'm taking the A set here, for example. So just to take 3 animals, a tamarin scores points based on the number of animals in its habitat. Okay, cool, group it up with a lot of things. Giant otter scores based on the number of hexes in its habitat. Alright, so put it in a very large habitat. And the leaf frog, every grouping of a leaf frog and an adjacent flower scores 4 points. So those flowers that I mentioned, great if you pair them with a leaf frog. They've all got their different criteria for whatever reason, their own restrictions, and their own cost in terms of fruit and other resources. The scenery cards come in 2 flavors. You can buy the scenes, or you can buy like the landscapes, or you can buy insect cards. The insect cards are basically one-off bonuses. When you buy them with water resource, you get a cool effect. The scenery specific cards, like the landscape ones, or I forget what they're called, but basically landscape, scenery, something about a jungle. These ones can score you extra points based on some other criteria, and you can have up to 4 of them. So it gives you something else to aim for during the game. There are no rounds per se, you just carry on taking it in turns, drawing the tokens. When you empty your bag, refill it in normal fashion until the game end trigger is done, which is basically to have 5 of the 8 animal big cards drained of all their meeples. So as you can see here, there's quite a few of these different animals here. So once 5 cards are drained, you finish off the round, and basically the one with the most points, have a guess.
Of course!
So hopefully you can tell from that little explanation is that there are similarities to Cascadia, but there's definitely a lot more meat besides. And I haven't even explained everything. You've got like the waterfall track, which has the tracks you level up in order to play the trees and the forest and get more tiles, and your costs go up exponentially as you carry on along that track. But even though there's a lot of stuff going on here, it's not that difficult to teach this game. The rules are pretty straightforward, and I gotta give props where it's due. the rulebook for this game is actually pretty good. You know, you've got a full appendix for every single card in the game, so you shouldn't end up with any FAQ moments unresolved. The book may look big, but there's a decent amount in the back here for solo mode. We'll touch on that in a minute. But gameplay, there's only a few pages that you've got to read. There's a lot of pictorial examples, so it really does go nitty-gritty to explain each point so that you should understand it fine. Lots of picture examples. It's very clear to read. And even then, you've got a very good set of reference cards that tell you the type of actions and the iconography for bonuses. The bonuses are very straightforward, and the actions, some of them are similar to each other, but even then there's literally a paragraph of writing for each action, and that's really all you need to know about the action. They are very straightforward. So even though this definitely has a lot more that you're thinking about compared to Cascadia, there's also not a massive learning curve in order to get it played. On the component front, you might think, wow, this looks really pretty. You know, I mean, you have got, you know, these trays that you assemble, you've got these chunky wood resource tokens, everything's all colorful and everything. And yeah, certainly the artwork is fantastic. The box cover is already a good stem alone, but these animal cards look fantastic. They're sort of like photorealistic practically. All these like little individual cards, there's nice artwork on them, and even the tiles, yes, it's basic coloring, but they still look nice and colorful when you've got it on the table. The artwork is maybe a little bit too good though in some respects. I mentioned that was an insect deck. This is the Amazonia. Alongside Australia, the Amazon jungle is basically on my ban list for anywhere I want to visit. Mainly for the reason that there are 4 cards in this deck, which I'm not going to reveal because I'm not that mean, that are spiders. Yeah, and we're talking tarantula, we're talking red armed spider. How do you arm a spider? They got legs. And something else called a... I don't even want to look at it. It's like a harvest spider or something, which I swear the last time I saw anything look that horrific was looking at the Arkham horror god who's basically in charge of the spiders, or the Plateau of Leng or something. There's a picture in the 2nd edition or something. I swear it looks a bit like that. It is nightmare fuel. I can't even look at these 4 cards in the game. That's how bad they are. I have to take them out of the game, or if I keep this game, I'm gonna have to get sticky things on them. Even just pretty pictures of cats, you know, like create my own arachnophobia mode because they're just too good for that matter. But then even some of these insects, I mean, there's a tree hopper here, which is pretty much nightmare fuel. I mean, hopefully nobody's averse to these bugs, but that alone is already pretty nightmare fuel. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there, like some ants and some particular things there, and I'm just looking at it going, ugh. I mean, I'm not the biggest bug fan as it is, you know. I'm not a fan of bugs, but I'm not scared of them. But spiders, I'm petrified of, and it's just like, well, big spiders, not small ones, but you know, it's, you know, it's a problem if you don't like bugs or arachnids. You're gonna have trouble looking at that deck because it is going to be, you know, it's gonna give you some nightmares.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
But components-wise, that's where you get a little bit more of a problem, because some of the components are fantastic. I love all these animeeples. They are great, they look cool, and they're very satisfying. You might think that, wow, all these, you know, components, these nice wooden tokens and that, they're all great. That's not the retail version of the game. No, the retail version of the game has you using a combination of cardboard tokens for all the resources, which are you know, bagged up, and the usual thing with trees where you get 2 bits of cardboard and slot them together to make these little flimsy trees. These aren't good. I'm sorry, they're just not. I mean, for a game that was on Kickstarter and tries to retail at something like 80 bucks or like 55, 60 quid, these aren't good, and the cardboard for these resource tokens is dangerously thin. I mean, you're playing a bag builder with these. These are going to wear down in no time at all. They're going to bend. They're going to warp. You know, these are not good. And for a game that costs that much, I don't get where the money's going to. I mean, the artist maybe is certainly getting a decent cut, but given that when you take these out, the only half-decent component is probably the waterfall track. And even then, I mean, this waterfall track is more of a pain to assemble than anything else. I mean, you've got to, you know, get the little hook things to line up, and, you know, they've already come out just by lifting this thing up, so it's not the most easy thing to do. And because everything's a bit of a Tetris nonsense when it's in the box, if you do keep this assembled in the box, things are going to struggle to fit around it. You're probably going to have to, you know, try and squeeze it in somehow. It's just a bit of a pain. Now you can get upgraded components. There are these ones that you can grab. One of them is a mini expansion, which gives you a few more cards, you know, a few more animals to use. This is nice, but it's not a massive deal. It's just more variety. But the upgrades, oh my word. I mean, there's a good and a bad side to this. If you can afford them, they are fantastic. Because as I say, you have got nice chunky wooden screen printed discs for all the resources. They are amazing. You've also got, you know, proper wooden trees. They are great. You've got wooden flowers. They are great. You know, you've got other wooden tokens for other side things, but mainly just getting the resource tokens alone is worth it. Problem is, you're already paying something like 55, 60 quid for this game. These are going to set you back probably the same amount again. I swear, I think looking on Bad Comet's website, one of them was about 35 bucks and the other one was about 20 something bucks. You know, you're talking another 40 odd quid plus or something to get the upgraded components, plus that mini expansion. This is taking you into the £100 plus category very fast if you get those upgrades. And as good as the game is, it certainly is a good game. It is not a £100 plus game. That is a little bit much to ask. I mean, if I didn't get this as a review copy, I'd be thinking if I really wanted to spend that much money. It's quite an investment, and if you stick with the retail version, you are going to have to put up with very subpar components for what was a Kickstarter. So value is a little bit called to question here, but if money is no object and you're not too fussed about that, is the game fun in general? Yes. As much as I harp on some of the components and some of the setup bits, this game is very much fun to play. I mean, if you liked Cascadia, you're going to love this, because this is giving you that same feel of building up the ecological jungle, but you've got a much more interesting, like, looking thing. You've got, you know, different pieces everywhere. You've got to put all your animeeples on, and you get those in the retail version, so they still look cool. But that spatial awareness aspect that you had with Cascadia is now replicated here times 5, in terms of how much you've got to think about. And with 8 animals out there, you're not going to utilize all 8, but you might use a bit from each one, or you might try and focus on one animal at a time. But there's only so many meeples for each animal, so other players might take them off you, and of course you're going to have to compete with them. But the bag building aspect, love this as well, because it gives a cool sort of ramp up effect to the game. As you start off, you've only got like little 1s and 2s, you can't really do much, but very quickly you start finding yourself doing a lot more with the tokens you've got. You're having more actions, and so your turns feel more fulfilling, and you never feel like you've had a wasted turn. Because yeah, you might not have drawn exactly what you wanted, like I really wanted water, I didn't get water, but you still got something. You were still able to do something with the tokens that you have, and because you can store some from round to round, especially if you upgrade, you could store up to 3 tokens from turn to turn. You can set yourself up for some really big cool turns where you spend a ton of fruit and get like a bunch of animal meeples. So it never felt like I was like, I'm really not doing a lot here. It's like, no, you can do something, and that's great. The path to victory, very plentiful, because 8 different animals that score you points is going to lead you on different paths generally, but then you've also got all these insect cards which give you like the special bonuses. They're worth grabbing every now and again. But I also like these little scenery cards here, because these ones, like score based on the number of large habitats. Choose a tree, collect 2 points for every adjacent different piece. 2 points for a pair of a bird and mammal, 3 points per seed, which is a way of, it's kind of like a token, a bit like the pine cones in Cascadia. It lets you do something a little bit easier. Score based on the number of animals on river habitats. I mean, there's all sorts of different scoring things here, and there's quite a decent deck of them, and you're not going to go through that many in a game. So you've got a lot of variety in the game. This one has a very good replay value, because you've got, A, B, C, D of all the animal sets. If you get that mini expansion, you'll get an E set as well as an F family set, which is like easier abilities if you want it for families. Granted, that should have been in the normal game to begin with, although to be honest, the A set is not that difficult for families to get, really. It's just, I think they just came up with it as a little extra. But yeah, I mean, even excluding the mini expansion, you're talking 4 different sets of the 8 animals that you've got there, all those side cards, and just how you build up in general. This has got a good mileage for how long it's going to last before you decide to get bored with it. Now, there are a couple of other problems. Actually a couple of others. Actually a couple of other problems. Firstly, the length. The length with multiplayer is a bit long for what this game is. It really did need to cap the length to a degree. And the problem is that you do find that, especially with 4 players, even sometimes with 3, this game kind of outstays its welcome a little bit. You might actually want to not use the lightning variant that's in the book, because that, I think, is too fast, but you could do something in between. It just basically has you remove so many meeples from these cards. I think the lightning variant is too quick. If you find somewhere in between, you could tweak the length just a little bit. But also, the other problem is that this game is basically multiplayer solitaire. And that's a bit annoying, because I would have liked a little bit more interaction with other players, given that this is a meatier version of Cascadia, which in itself is fairly solitaire. You are basically competing for Meeples and maybe trying to get ahead on a track, but that's really it. The other players don't affect you in any major way, and if they do, they're not really doing it because it's to screw you over, they just do it inadvertently. So in a 4-player game, all you're adding is time, and some of that comes downtime, because yes, you will draw 5 out of your bag and you'll have a look and think, well, on my turn I could do this and this and this, and that is all good. But in a 4-player game, you've already come up with what you're going to do long before it gets back round to you, and yeah, you're going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs a little bit because there's not much else you can do on other players' turns, which does mean that this is not a game suited for big groups. Now, you have a solo mode in this game, and it's a good solo mode. I actually really like playing this solo because, similar to Cascadia, you've got scenarios that you can play. Now, Cascadia has more. This one effectively has, I think, 8 different rules tweaks to the game. You've got like a very basic version and then 8 ones where a rule tweak. So like you've got less money, or you can't put things next to other things, you know, stuff like that. You know, restrictions that you've got to adhere to. And you basically are trying to get bronze, silver, or gold award in points. So yeah, there's no AI to speak of. It's mostly a challenge aspect, which I'm cool with. I'm fine with that type of solo, but it's really easy to pilot. I've literally played a solo game here. It doesn't take that long, and all you've got to do is just draw, you've got to just follow this little track. You get 20 turns exactly, so it's a bit like the Ark Nova solo mode, and as your turn counter moves along here, you might get a bonus or two, but mainly you'll be instructed to draw a token out of a bag for the AI. It will tell you which cards and which Meeples to drain. That's basically all it does. It doesn't build up its own display or anything. It's just taking stuff away from you. And honestly, I don't even see why they bothered putting it on double-sided tokens and sticking them in the bags. If anything, it's a bit annoying having to right, okay, do this and then put them back in or whatever for an AI that doesn't technically exist. I mean, you could have literally just done this with 8 cards. That's all you need. There's only 8 tokens. Why don't you just give us 8 cards and then you can just shuffle them quickly and deal it out? I mean, it's a gripe, but whatever. It's not a massive deal. It's just something you got to deal with. But other than that, it's a pretty quick thing to pilot, and it makes the solo game, faster because you're just always thinking about your stuff all the time, apart from the little blip that you do whatever that token does and drain meeples. Otherwise, you're concentrating on your own tableau, you're thinking about your resource tokens, and 20 turns is surprisingly quite a lot of stuff, because as you get to sort of halfway, as I said, that ramp up effect kicks in and you start being able to do a lot more with your turns. But your time is of the essence and you're trying to be the most efficient with 20 turns, and it makes for a very enjoyable game at solo. On top of that, you've even got, as a small thing I hadn't mentioned, there's a unique animal that everybody gets where you get a special ability as soon as you're able to place the animal. You typically do this within the first 3 turns of the game. I mean, you can even do it on the first turn if you work to it. And the abilities balance may be called into question, but it's not too bad. But like I say, they're a cool addition, and you can have different unique animals, and that little mini expansion I mentioned gives you a few more. So again, you've got good variety in this game. So overall, I really do enjoy Life of the Amazonia. It is a really good, fun game, but it is held back by some of those component limitations, the value issue, and the fact that this is a fairly lengthy game with other players and being solitaire at the same time. That is kind of the issue, and I've got the upgraded tokens. I think the upgraded tokens are fantastic. I mean, even if you don't get the trees, if you're willing to accept that the cardboard trees are a thing, which is a bit annoying, and certainly assembling them all is a bit of a pain. You've got to assemble the trays as well, but at least the trays are pretty sturdy, and they've got printed stuff on the side, so you know what, I'm cool with those. For a Kickstarter, I would have liked something better than cardboard trees, though, and really thin cardboard for everything else, though, because everything is quite thin. But yeah, the meeples are still fantastic. But the problem is that this game is not cheap to buy in its base set form, and I just don't think you can really get by with those cheap, thin resource tokens. I think you need to get the upgraded set, which means very quickly you'll probably want the other set, which means this £55 game or whatever suddenly turns into £100 plus, and it's difficult to recommend it at that kind of value. But I can't knock the game entirely because it's that expensive, and let's face it, people are playing Iridia at the moment. How much was that game? It certainly does hurt it by being quite expensive in that regard, particularly as you probably don't want to play this with multiple players too often. But if you're a solo player, you're going to get quite a bit of mileage out of this, because the solo mode is good and really easy to pilot, which means you can have the fun, the fun factor of this game without all the extra time length. And setting it up by yourself is really not that long a deal either. So it's difficult to sort of quote this. I think those limitations do hold it back from being distinction worthy though. But I'm giving this a reasonable 8 out of 10 and saying it is a great game, because I think gameplay wise, it's a really great game, like excellent level greatness. You know, the upgraded tokens, fantastic, but they cost money and it's technically not in the base box, so I can only give so much credit to that. Great solo mode though, and you know, the whole building up your display and all the variety is good. I mean, you are at least getting a good amount of variety for the money you pay. But yeah, I can't forgive it for the multiplayer solitaire nature, the fact that there isn't really any player interaction, so having 4 players is entirely pointless, and the fact that for a Kickstarter game, the component quality is lacking in a fair few areas. I mean, come on, you know, this is the same publisher who did Wondrous Creatures. Look at that Kickstarter compared to this one in terms of what stuff you've got. We'll talk about that in the next video, but yeah, it just would have been a little bit better. But I still think 8 out of 10. This is still a really good game I recommend, if you're willing to either put up with retail components or you're willing to spend the extra cash. Maybe look out for it on a bring and buy, get it at a discount, that could be cool. You know, I think the main way you can get this game at the moment though is maybe the odd retailer, and I think direct from the website of the publisher until they reprint it again, or maybe do another Kickstarter reprint. So the stock of this is a little limited, but you know, if you do get a chance to play this one, I do highly recommend you try it out and then make your decision there. But yeah, it's not cheap, so bear that in mind. So that's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Let me know your comments down below. Do you agree with the pros and cons of this game? Does the value put you off? You know, are you happy with the retail components? Because that is kind of a big deal to bear in mind, but it'd be interesting to know what you think. And of course, check out the rest of my content. I mean, we're going to do Wondrous Creatures soon after this video, so by all means, you know, if you're looking forward to that one, there will be a full detailed review of that. Although this video has gone on for quite a while, it might as well be a detailed one, but what can I say? You know, it's just the way it is. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether you are going to create your own arachnophobia mode for a game, it's still only a game. So just don't flip the cards over, and you'll sleep easier tonight. Take care, bye for now.
The only good bug is a dead bug.